Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dragon and this is my E3 After Action report. Kind of. See, I've been busting my head against the wall for the last 20 odd minutes trying to figure out how I'm going to name this video, but I figure I should just explain it rather than you know, continue the head-busting process. Essentially, I've gone through the trouble of watching pretty much every remotely interesting to me trailer from E3 this year, and I've decided to make this video as a sort of compilation of what happened on at E3, and talk about it a little bit, give my sort of one-piece opinion on the subject, and, well, that's about it, honestly. So, here goes nothing, basically. We're starting off with, doubtlessly, pretty much the single most popular video on E3 this year, and that's going to be Cyberpunk. Now, I should warn you, there's a dozen games here, so I'm going to go through a lot, but not everything. Some games were just teaser trailers, there's not much to talk about, some games I just don't find particularly exciting, personally, so, you know, this is entirely subjective, but I do go through most of the worthwhile ones, or at least the ones that I deem most worthwhile this year. So, all I'm saying is apologies if I haven't included your favourite game. We're starting off with Cyberpunk 2077, to nobody's surprise, and I'm not going to talk about it too much here. Essentially, I think everyone has seen the video. Keanu Reeves is not only on stage, he is also a character in the game, and so here's the thing. Is it just me, or is the guy genuinely excited? And here's what I mean by that. We've seen half a dozen announcement trailers at E3 that, A, look nothing like the final product, and I do mean nothing like the final product. But not only that, that's not the main issue here either. The main problem for me, at the very least, most of the time, is there's just so much fake hype and excitement being built up that it comes crashing down on top of the developers' heads eventually to nobody's benefit, right? Is it just me? I know Keanu Reeves is an actor, that I've not been living under a rock for the past however many years. I'm well aware of this. But it could be just my naivete, but I'm pretty sure the guy is genuinely excited. Like, he seemed very frank on stage, and he seemed right at home, honestly, even though he's not really the first person you'd expect at such a geeky convention. Though we have seen our fair share of celebrities and stuff like that at E3. He doesn't really fit, and there's a charm to it. It wasn't expected. Lots of charm in that, obviously, as well. And he just seems very, very genuine about his involvement. Now, I do have to say the following, though, and that's don't overhype the game. Too many games have been ridiculously hyped, and it's not good. Not good for you. It's better to have low expectations and be pleasantly surprised than always be disappointed throughout your life. That's not just true for gaming, that's for life in general, right? That's my sort of philosophy. You know, you're entitled to your own opinions. Have at it, you know, whatever. But I think it would be prudent to take everything with a pinch of salt and expect the game to be average. I know, controversial as it may be. I think it's better to expect the game to be average and then be blown away by either its characters, its size, its freedom of choice, whatever, then expect everything to be in the game and find that there's a lack of things to do in sandbox mode, for example. Not in sandbox mode, but like between missions, you know, in free roam, if you will. Or to find the storyline to be extremely short, or, I don't know, to find that there's only two options in each quest, you know, for branching storylines, but there's only two lines, right? I don't think that's going to be the case. I really don't, because out of all of the game developers on God's green earth right now, CD Projekt Red are among the top that I trust. And it's not a blind trust, they've earned it. They've earned it with The Witcher, they've earned it with well, The Witcher. That's about it. But they've earned it, right? They absolutely have. And, honestly, more power to them. More power to them. But, at any rate... Where was I going with this? Yes, I should have recorded this video separately and then done the audio, but let's not worry about that right now. So, that's pretty much it about Cyberpunk. Go see the trailer. The trailer details a little bit more about, if you're very interested in Cyberpunk, which I mean, how can you not be? It details a little bit more about the game, but it's fine. You know, it's a fine trailer. I like it. I liked all the other trailers visually, not so much visually, atmospherically. I think there's a difference. There's a difference between the two. Atmospherically, the game looks very impressive. It looks like something I could just run through for the atmosphere a lot of the time, and I would love to do that. So the release date is April 2020, and essentially what that does is it doesn't put a timer on. Well, it does put a timer on CD Projekt Red, of course. It puts a timer on everyone else, right? Because right now, we know just how huge this game is, and just how... I mean, it's top-selling on Steam, and there's no gameplay of it yet. I mean, well, there is. Okay, I'm lying. There is a little bit of gameplay of it, but that's, like, super early stages. There's no real, tangible reviews or whatever of the game, because it's so damn early on, and it's top-selling on Steam already. Point being, everyone else is now going to be calculating their release dates based on this, because it is a monumentally important title, and honestly, no pressure, CD Projekt Red, no pressure, but yeah, at any rate, be that as it may, that's pretty much it as far as I'm concerned for this. I'm excited to see more content, trailer-wise and gameplay-wise in the future for the game. I'm excited to play it. April's pretty far away, though. There's other games to get into, so let's do that. Though most of these are set to release in 2020, but hey. Which means it's going to be a packed year. Like, it's going to be very packed. Which is not necessarily a good thing either, but, well, it's not good from a profitability standpoint for developers, because you can't buy all the games. It's a simple reality of the matter is, most people are going to buy Cyberpunk, and like the vast majority of gamers are going to buy like a couple of games next to that. Most of them are not going to buy a dozen or so games throughout the year. Some of us that have less of a social life, right, are going to buy a lot more of them than the average consumer, but from a profitability standpoint, it's not great, but hey. Too much of a good thing, I suppose. Yeah, that seems to be the problem. At any rate, let's go on. There's a dozen or so. Oh, oops, sorry about that. There's a dozen. Try again. There's a dozen or so games to cover, so let's get on with that. Next is Baldur's Gate, developed by the team that worked on Divinity 2. By far one of my favourite RPGs in recent memory. I have finished it somewhat recently, actually, because when it initially released, I had a ton of other Let's Plays to do, I had uni work and all that, and between me and you, I finished like 1% of the games I play. I now have it stuck in my head that I'm going to finish Rage, for some example, for some reason, sorry, even though I'm not playing it, I'm not enjoying it that much, but I have just stuck it in my head that this is a game I have to finish, for the sake of finishing a title every now and again, right? But Divinity I did finish, which what I'm trying to say is that it is a fantastic RPG. Just so many choices, so many great different branching paths, and the combat was pretty solid, a lot better than, I'm putting Paradox to shame a little bit, and considering my recent comments on some of their games, this is not particularly fair to them, because I do love that company, I do love their products, but I found it a lot more enjoyable than I did, for example, Pillars of Eternity, or, I know just Paradox just publishes that game, but, you know, whatever. I found it a lot more enjoyable than that, and genuinely, it was great fun. It was great fun. It took me back to the days of something like... Oh, what was that game called? Dragon Age Origins, yes. That was the one. It took me back to days like that, even though it is very much a different style of game, but I wasn't born in the 1980s. So, and then in the early 1990s, so basically most of the D&D type of games like Baldur's Gate back in the day escaped me, but I did play the other, the more modern editions of Baldur's Gate, and this one does excite me quite a bit, mostly because of the development team. Again, I am familiar with their work. I think they're going to do a great job, and I'm excited. I'm very much excited to see what they're going to do. I've looked a little bit into the Mind Flayers as well, which is the character or the monster or whatever featured in well, that's a race technically, right? Featured in the trailer, and it's a fun universe. It's a very fun universe. I don't know a lot about it, but I imagine that puts me in the camp with most of the people that are going to play that game, because Baldur's Gate, as popular as it is, not a lot of people know about it. And considering it's a new development team, I'm thinking they're going to take it from the top, right? And they're going to introduce us to everything slowly, and it's not going to depend on a lot of content from the previous games and stuff like that. And I'm looking forward to a slightly fresher take on Baldur's Gate with the same sort of traditional RPG style that we know and love. And honestly, I'm excited. I really, really am. The trailer was fantastic. It was strict to the point. It's Baldur's Gate. You don't need gameplay to know what it's going to be like. You're more interested in the quests, the story, the you know, stuff like that, rather than the rolling for initiative, right? Even though we have done away with that to some extent, though not fully. But yeah, at any rate, moving on, Borderlands 3. A long chunk of gameplay for Borderlands 3, and well, okay, maybe I'm not being fair to the game. I probably am not being fair to the game. But here's the thing. I don't know until I play it. Borderlands is one of those games where you need to take the gun in your hands, proverbially, shoot some stuff around the map, loot stuff, and then give your verdict on it. Also engage with the characters a little bit. Now, we haven't seen that much of the characters and the humor and the stuff like that in the trailer, though we have some. We haven't seen that much of it. However, it looks to me to be a little bit more like the pre-sequel than Borderlands 3. Than Borderlands 2, sorry. Now, yes, gone is the entire space theme, gone is the entire oxygen management system, thank Christ. However, the shooting felt a little bit weak. The guns, again, we don't know. 30 minutes is not exactly enough of, it's less than 30 minutes, I think, of actual gameplay, but there's not a lot of time that we've had we haven't had a lot of time to experience the game itself, but it looks a little bit meh, right? Enemies seem a little bit too tanky to me. Now, of course, this is just purely subjective speculations. Like I said, I haven't played it. Maybe when I get my hands on it, I'll absolutely love it. But along with some of the microtransaction news, along with some of the, you know, less than reputable stuff that's been happening with the PR of this game, and then, honestly, what bugs me the most is the enemies seem to be a little bit too bullet spongy. Now, bullet spongy enemies is nothing new to Borderlands. I mean, it's not a realistic kind of game. If you've played any of them for any extended period of time, you know. But here's the thing. Getting those headshots, those criticals, hitting people with shotguns and stuff like that was impactful. It was difficult for certain enemies. And that was great. Sorry about that. It was great for certain enemies that were tanky, like bosses, or, it was primarily like bosses and mini-bosses, right? However, here's the thing. I've seen regular enemies take up to, like, a clip or two of ammunition to kill. That's not very fun. Honestly, I hope that's just me being silly, and that's, you know, not like that. Maybe it's just the level of the guns in the area. That's how they chose to present it. Maybe that'll be different when I actually get my hands on it. I don't know. Again, still early to say. But my point, you know, regardless of how that turns out, my point still stands the same. I would like it to be more like Borderlands 2. Matter of fact, I would like it to be a copy of Borderlands 2. Hell, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There was nothing wrong with Borderlands 2, especially some of its DLC. Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep, for example, is possibly the single greatest DLC ever devised by humankind, right? You should buy that game just for that DLC and play it because it's just god awesome, right? It's a D&D adventure in Borderlands. It's phenomenal. It's everything you need. I've played that DLC more I think than I've played the actual game, and it's so brilliantly awesome. I would just like a return to more of that. There's no need to innovate too much. Again, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't care about half of the you know, the oxygen and the I don't know, innovative looting system or whatever you're gonna try and introduce. There isn't. It's still pretty much the same color-coded weapons and everything, but you know what I mean. I don't care about those niche little finesse details. The humor needs to be right, the characters need to be right, and the gunplay needs to pretty much stay the same, because it's great, you know? An update in the graphics would be great, still keeping the same cartoony style, but just make it look, I don't know, a little bit more stylishly different. I accept, you know, if you want to have some new artists take a crack at it, I'm for it. It's kind of my job to look at different pieces of art and critique them. I get paid for it, quite literally. Most I deal with literature, yes, but still, you know, art is art, right? Why limit yourself? So, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need anything too specific or outlandish, and I think they're going to try and overachieve with this game, and they're going to try and take it a too different a direction for fear of being... For fear of launching the same product twice, which, honestly, I don't think anyone would mind, but be that as it may, it's quite a bit of gameplay of that. I think that's one of the longest videos on E3 that we've had on YouTube so far, so if you're interested in Borderlands, go and check it out, obviously, but that goes pretty much for every other video that I talk about, so, hey, needless to say, I suppose. Moving on to Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. They've spoiled a part of the story, apparently. Except they haven't. See, everyone's going to tell you they've spoiled a part of the story. Well, kind of. I assume that the mission that they've shown us, is one of the first, if not the first, mission that you're going to embark when creating a new character. It would make sense, and I get a very strong vibe from the first game. It feels very similar. When you go to... oh, what was his name? I forget. The ghoul in downtown. The first mission, you need to get the explosives from him, but he doesn't have them, so you need to steal them from a gang, and so on and so forth. I get the feeling that that's sort of a similar type of mission, to an extent. It's not story-wise, but, you know, you get a sort of similar feel. So I'm assuming that that's one of the earlier missions, and even if not, they've showed you basically not much. I mean, they've shown you that there's multiple ways to deal with the mission. There's multiple outcomes to the mission. You can kill the, what's his face? I've completely forgotten the name of the character. Oh, fun. I've completely forgotten the name of the character, but it's the guy with the weird, rotten-looking face, right? So they've shown you him basically, and not much more, right? They haven't shown you like vital elements of the story or whatever. It's just a little bit of him and one quest. Would you rather they show you nothing? Because I wouldn't. I want to see elements of the game. I want to know what I'm buying, right? So personally, I don't mind, and I don't think that they've really ruined the game. And the fact that, I don't know, it's kind of weirding me out that people are treating it as like a major spoiler. It's like they've unveiled the ending. Guys, it's not that big of a deal, honestly. Still, but hey, maybe that's just me being crazy. Who knows? At any rate, what about the trailer itself? Well, they've shown some actual gameplay a little bit this time. Kind of. Again, it's not crystal clear, but I'm pretty sure it's actual gameplay. Some of the powers and stuff. The powers look really cool, and a lot more importantly, they've hinted at the political complexity of the vampire system, and they've hinted at the rivalry between the various different vampire clans and whatnot, which is exactly what we want from a vampire game, pretty much. The rivalry between the clans and all that is vital. Absolutely vital to a Vampire the Masquerade game, and we definitely don't want one storyline that's been, you know, spoon-fed to us in one single narrative. We want freedom of choice, branching story paths, pretty much like the original Masquerade. Again, you're not reinventing the wheel, it's relatively simple. Well, it's not relatively simple, but we have relatively straightforward demands, right? And I think most of the people that are looking forward to this game would agree with that. So, that said, do I like it? Yeah, honestly, I'm one of the most pessimistic people about Vampire the Masquerade right now. Because I know the guys who are working on the story, I know the guys who are writing for the game, and I'm not thrilled. Honestly, I'm not thrilled to have them. I'd gladly eat those words if they prove me wrong, I absolutely will, but something tells me they just might not. So I reserve my right to be pessimistic about the title until I actually play it. However, this does give me some form of optimism, kind of. Because I haven't seen anything from the game itself right now that I actively really dislike. And that's a very good sign. I mean, they've shown some of the political complexity, they've shown the political diversity of the clans, and the different approaches you can take. So honestly, I'm pretty happy with it. Essentially, the one thing I really want them to not screw up is our ability to be evil. I am a demon in the friggin' night, right? If I want to be an evil bastard while not breaking the Masquerade, I can do it, right? If I can do it, you have yourself a vampire game that I like. If I want to play a good vampire and be that, then yeah, sure, why not allow for that possibility as well? But don't spoon-feed it to me. Right, don't force me to take that option and present no other alternative, because that's not what RPGs are about. They're about playing a role. It's in the fucking title of the genre. Role-playing game. If you're gonna force a role down my throat, you no longer have an RPG. Simple as that, and that's pretty much my only, I think that's pretty much my biggest concern with the story of the game, and the quests, and the branching paths, and whatnot, right? Fulfill that, and I think you're in a good way to a positive review, along with, you know, decent gameplay, but, hell, decent combat and gameplay were not really a thing in the original, and I love the living hell out of it, so shows you how important the story is, or the characters and the story and the different interactions you can have with them is in a vampire game. So, that being said, for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, I will not spoil anything from the trailer. If you don't want to see it, don't. I recommend if you're interested about or you're not interested in the spoiler and don't want to spoil anything for yourself, you know, I don't think it's a major deal. I recommend that you... Ooh, what the hell is that? I recommend that you just watch the trailer without any audio. I genuinely think that's the best option right now, because you're just going to see the powers, and you're going to see what that's like, pretty much. That's it. At any rate, moving on, because there's a ton more games to cover. Dying Light 2! Oh, there are a few people in the world more excited than I am for Dying Light 2. Here's the thing. Dying Light 1... and its DLC, especially its DLC, were not a perfect game. Well, it was not a perfect game along with its DLC, right? It really wasn't. It had its fair share of problems, and the ending, oh god, the ending. I didn't like it. I didn't like the ending of the DLC especially. I think the DLC had one of the worst endings, the following, by the way, I believe it's called. I believe it had one of the worst endings since Mass Effect 3. I genuinely did. And I still do, because it gives you two non-satisfactory options, and it doesn't seal off the story, right? It still leaves room for a sequel, but not in the way that's satisfactory. I have no problem with my character dying in the end, it's just that I'd rather, if he does have to die, I'd rather have it be for something, which it sort of is, kind of, but not really. You sacrifice yourself for a spoilers, by the way, you sacrifice yourself for a relatively minor thing. Which is like a valley. Okay, that might not be the most minor thing in the world, but yeah, you sacrifice yourself for a valley when a nuke explodes. It's, yeah, either that or you don't explode the nuke and you die anyway, which is like, I suppose, yeah, you should have picked the different option type ending for those of you that, you know, were really keen on the character, but I was. I was really keen on the character. Kyle Crane was awesome. I really liked Kyle Crane. Do we get Kyle Crane in 2? No, Kyle Crane is dead. And it's one of those things that I really hoped for back when I finished the following a long time ago now. Played it when it was initially released once, and I haven't touched the game since, to be brutally honest with you. But I know a lot of people still play it to this very day, which is great, honestly. It excites me quite a bit. And I'm glad, because you know, it basically enables us. Now, the more people buy it and the more people play it, it enables future content for the series and the universe to be produced. So I'm obviously happy about that. But thing is, Kyle Crane is definitely dead. They're not going to revive him. I was hoping that, as stupid as that would be, I was hoping we would still play as Kyle in the second game, but no. We're playing as Aiden, and it's in a different city, it's in a different part of the world. It's essentially, it's still Dying Light, it's still parkour zombie survival, but it's in a different region, it's in a completely different story, and that's okay. That is genuinely okay. Again, like I said, I would have hoped for Kyle Crane again, I would have hoped for maybe a different city, why not? I think going back to the same city again would be, from a sorry, from profitability and PR standpoint, I don't think that would be a good idea. But I do think it works. I do think that they're just keeping it in the same universe, but just doing a completely brand new game, unrelated, or at least very little related to the first one. I think that works. I'm excited for the game, honestly. About it, though, about the first one, that is, I loved it. I loved the living hell out of it, except, like I said, it had its problems, and I'm aware of them, and I just don't care, to be honest with you. Now, part of the reason, I suppose, could be that I played it with, at the time, one of my very good friends from Canada, and I think I still have a few videos of us playing on the channel, and I loved every minute of that game. The night raids were awesome initially. Here's the thing about Dying Light 2. If the first few hours, let's say the first 2 or 3 hours of Dying Light, can be made into a single 60-70 hour experience of Dying Light 2, that would be just the best game I would have played in a long, long time. Bar none, the best zombie survival game I would have played ever. Right? Because initially, in the first few hours of Dying Light, the original, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away by the game. I absolutely was. Loved every second of it. I was terrified at night. Regular zombies and hordes were a problem because I was a noob, right? Then, however, they started introducing some ridiculous tools for surviving the night. And even on the hardest difficulty, which I did play later down the line, I became good enough at the game where night wasn't scary anymore. Right? Sometimes it was, if there's many tough enemies at night, but a lot of the time when you saw one of those, what were they called? I can't believe I forgot the name of the ones that run around in the night. But anyways, you know the ones I mean if you play the game. Once you saw one of them, you were terrified, because A, there's probably a few more down the line, right? And 2, him alone, he's like, for newbie you at the time, near impossible to kill. And there's a panic to just run away, and some of the chases that I had with them were the most fun, thrilling, action-packed, heart-pumping sequences I've had in my video game career so far, which is damn long. I mean, I've been glued to a computer screen since I was 4 or 5, right? They were absolutely fantastic. If we can have more of that hardcore experience, even if it's just optional and an arbitrary as a difficulty setting, right? If we can have more of that, if the game can make me feel helpless more, I think that's one way to summarize my rant very well. If the game can make me feel hopeless a little bit more often, I think that would go a long way to making it even better. And as far as Dying Light is concerned, I hold to this day that I'm one of the biggest fans of Dying Light, the original, because I gave that game a 10 out of 10 in my personal brain and headspace, because I don't give arbitrary titles and arbitrary ratings, sorry. And I give 10 out of 10 to nothing, right? Just out of principles. I give 10 out of 10 to nothing. There's a select few things that I would rate 10 out of 10 in my life, right? And it's just, it was great. I loved it, despite all the problems that it had. I just didn't care. It was a great experience. It was fantastic. And I'm very excited to see that there's going to be a second one. I'm just hoping for more of the same in the first one, just better. But isn't that what everyone is hoping for when they see a trailer? I've said literally nothing, but there you go. Other than that, like I said, the entire hopelessness thing I think is very important. The game needs to be scary, right? The game needs to terrify you with the I'm gonna throw things at you that are gonna murder you, and no matter the tools you have, you can't defeat them. You can't be better and stronger than them. You can only use the rare, limited tools that you have to escape from them, right? To survive them, not beat them out, straight up in a fight, right? And I think if they get that right, I think that's going to be a great game. And it's not like I'm proposing something that's I'm taking way too long with Dying Light, but don't worry, there's other games aren't going to take as long because they're rather straightforward. The thing for me, the most important thing for me is, well, no, sorry, I've talked about that. The train of thought was, it's not like I'm reinventing the wheel here. Think of Amnesia. Think of what was it? Alien Isolation. Especially Alien Isolation. That game gave you guns, but they weren't there to kill the alien. Even though you technically could kill a few of them throughout the game, they were there to survive, for you to survive, right? To escape the aliens. Something like that during the night, I think that'd be great. If we could play a zombie survival game during the day, and then Alien Isolation at night. Boy, oh boy. That's just my wishes, though. Maybe people do want just a harder version of the daytime during the nighttime, and do want to be able to beat those zombies and kill them and whatnot, and, you know, and just straight up be stronger than them. And I'm not saying make them immortal. I feel like I shouldn't be saying this, but yeah. I'm not saying make them immortal. I'm just saying make me feel hopeless. Make me feel terrified of them, and not just like, oh, this is going to be tough. Because it's not supposed to be a boss fight. It's supposed to be terrifying. And the entire world is built around the fact that nighttime is terrifying, right? Don't have me play for 4 or 5 hours and then be like, oh, whatever, nighttime, I'll just run during the night and they won't be able to catch me, or I'll just, you know, do whatever. I'll just beat them. That's very important for me. Alright. Next is Final Fantasy, and this is going to take only a few seconds, because I haven't played Final Fantasy ever. But, for the Final Fantasy fans out there, 7 is getting remade, 8 is getting remade, or remastered, or whatever you want to call it. And then on top of that we have Chronicles coming out, I think that's what it's called. Ton of Final Fantasy content, and it's a good opportunity to pick up some of the older games that are being remade now. Because honestly, the chances of me playing Final Fantasy 6 or 7 or 8 right now are pretty slim, to be brutally honest. However, the remakes, different story, and yeah. I think it's a good way to attract new fans of the series. Well, not fans, but like new people to the series. Myself included, and yeah, for those of you that do like Final Fantasy and have played it in the past, congratulations. A lot of content coming your way. That's about it. So, moving on. It's important, a lot of people play it. It's just, I never had the chance. Maybe at some point, but, you know, for now, too busy. Right, next is Madden NFL 20. Not really that made your list. Well, here's the thing. I have a little bit of a weakness for NFL. All I'm saying is, thank you for bringing it to PC, and go YO, alright? No, I'm not a fan of of Wyoming, not that much. Texas Longhorns is my, like, I think I love their playstyle quite a bit. I love their playbook quite a bit. In-game and IRL. I know, not the greatest team. Controversial. Every time you pick any team in the NFL, you say you root for them, it's controversial. I don't care. I'm a foreigner. I'm not American. I can root for whoever I want, right? There's no local pride or anything like that going on. So for me, Texas Longhorns. Why does it matter? I don't know. As of last year, as of the second to last Super Bowl, I've grown fonder and fonder to American football, as we call it here, or to the NFL, right? And I've played Madden 19. Matter of fact, I think I still have it on this PC. I've played Madden 19, and I liked it quite a bit. They're bringing 20 to the PC. I'm hoping for a better game, honestly. Madden 19 had plenty of problems. The career mode, personally, wasn't all that much for me. Mind you, I'm coming off of NBA, so... Well, actually, the last two NBAs were shite as well, but the ones prior to that were pretty damn good, right? So, career mode wasn't that great. There weren't that many teams, and my sort of dream idea, or my sort of, how should I call it? My sort of biggest wish when it came to Madden was to pick up a team, be their coach, and coach that team for X amount of time and develop the team. I've soon discovered that in terms of development, you're really limited. There's not that many teams, there's not that many games to play, and really, it's just... nah. And I was like, alright, well, let's play a player. Because I've played NBA as a player, in my career mode. I've played FIFA as a player, as you know, my player mode, or in the my player mode, and I loved the living hell out of those modes, and they were really, really fun. The progression was satisfying. The playing the sport as one member of the team, right, was great. Now it's the NFL, so you're gonna play the quarterback, obviously, because, well, what else are you gonna play? And you have the option to play everything else, which I'm very happy for, don't get me wrong, but you're going to play the quarterback. Play the quarterback for a season, and I got bored. Progression wasn't anything special. There wasn't much of a story to it. Story mode itself with the two characters was kind of weak, in my opinion, compared to the other titles. All in all, not that impressed. I'm hoping for just a straight-up improvement. But more than anything, I'm very glad that they're bringing it back to the PC. Not so much for the game, this particular title itself, because I don't know that much about it. It's more about the future of the, I'm chasing a convoy on foot, Jesus Christ. It's more about the future of sports games on PC, because they've moved away from the PC. Be it lack of selling a sufficient number of copies, be it, you know, whatever. They've moved away. They've moved away. We've lost NHL. We've lost NFL. We're slowly but surely losing the NBA. And I'm hoping that they do come back. I genuinely am. I'm hoping that they come back to stay, because there's fans of sport games on PC, me being one of them. Well, particular sport games and only in particular moods. But hey, you know, it's better than nothing. Yeah, there's a market for them here, I hope, and it's just good. I'm against all types of console and platform exclusives, right? So the more systems it's available on, the better it is for us consumers, objectively speaking. So there you go. I'm happy that it's coming. All right, next is Wasteland 3. I'm going to try and keep it brief because the video is going on for way too long, but actually not that long. We're reaching the 40-minute mark, and we have 5 more games to cover. So hey, it's gonna be quicker though. Don't worry about it. So, Wasteland 3, not too much of a trailer, but very quick synopsis of the first Wasteland. Gritty, brutal, occasionally somewhat light-hearted, but mostly difficult and gritty Wasteland survival game, which basically was something along the lines of a survival game meets Baldur's Gate or Divinity or something like that, right? Where you control a set of characters, they all have their unique skills, and you can create each and every one of them, and you go out on missions, there is a story and everything, of course, but it's survival and doing quests and going with the story. It's kind of like a Fallout game, right? Except an RPG where you control multiple people, and it's set in sort of the vein and type of the older RPG games, again, such as Baldur's Gate. And it was great. The variety in the characters, quests, loot, all of that was very good. It was very satisfactory. I loved it, and the story was pretty good too. The side quests were great as well. The enemy variety was pretty good. The combat was decent. Decent for me. I know there are people who swear by that combat system and absolutely adore it. I'm not one of them, but I like it. Yeah, I don't dislike it, but I'm not absolutely in love with it. Wasteland 3 looks to be more of the same to an extent. They seem to have taken a more light-hearted approach in the trailer. I don't know about the game itself, but it seems to be a little bit more ridiculous and a little bit more flashy. The trailer is actually kind of overemphasizing this a little bit compared to the actual game. I know it is, trust me. It's when it comes to these E3 speculation videos, there's very few things that I say I will know, and I'll mostly leave it up to ambiguity. But this I know. The trailer is hyping it up. The entire game's not like that, trust me. I've played the second Wasteland, I haven't played the original one, but yeah. A little bit more ridiculous, a little bit more flashy, a little bit more explosive. And honestly, that's fine. That's fine. I don't like it that much. I honestly don't. I would prefer it to be more gritty and realistic. To me, it seems like it's taking a similar route to Rage, where this game is not much for story. I mean, Rage 2, the original Rage was a dark, gritty survival game with some elements of ridiculousness and humor, but it had a pretty good storyline, and it was pretty dark at times, right? And it was serious. And it made you care about the characters to an extent. Rage 2 is just neon pink flashing lights where you just shoot stuff until it blows up. And that's about it. Yeah. Not ideal, right? Not ideal, but I'm hoping that they don't go down that path, and ooh boy. Alright, I have a new toy to play with. Lovely. Okay. But yeah, that'll be about it. There's not much to see. Trailer's not that long, but it's pretty decent, right? It is pretty decent. So, moving on to the second page of my script. There you go. Yes, I do actually have a script for this video. In case you haven't noticed. Ghost Recon, or the next Ghost Recon game. Meh. Alright, let me explain. I've played Ghost Recon Wildlands, and I know the game is relatively well received, and I can see why. Definitely can see why. I find it enjoyable. However, there were some problems with the game that I just couldn't forgive it, right? And as a result, I never finished it, and I probably never will. Not probably, but I never will. I've sort of stopped playing it. And that is, in its open worldness, it's too open worlded. What the hell are you talking about? The quests that you go on are most of them, in the main storyline, feel like side quests, right? Go and defend the antenna until it's raised up into the heavens, and go and kill this guy, or go and interrogate this guy. They feel like side quests in a bigger game. First of all. Second of all, the limitations of the engines, the gear, and the weapons. It's the little details that get me most of the time. Now, overall, the game's pretty satisfactory. The amount of customization that you can do with your character's looks and the weapons and everything is great. I love it. It really is great. However, it has its problems and it has its limits. For example, I believe the maximum scope you can have in the game is ×4. Or was it ×6? Something like that. you can't get a times 12 scope because the engine doesn't allow it. It doesn't render that far out, and it can't render that far out. Honestly, for a game that's relatively new, that's pathetic. So then you have little old Juggernaut, who wanted to play a sniper, right? He got his ghillie suit, he got all ready and excited, customized his character, made him a sniping badass, and then... sod. Then sod, right? Sad, sad reality of the engine kicks in. And it goes further than that. Occasionally, you would plan a attack on headquarters of the enemy, or a base. I would clear it out, and I'd be all happy. And then I'd go to the next 7 bases in the area, and I'd clear those out. And I would feel like I've done good. I would feel like I've made progress, and I've liberated the people in the area. Only to return tomorrow to realise that all the bases have been repopulated, and even though I've finished all the quests in the province, and officially fully liberated it, a large percentage of those outposts and military bases are still manned by either the government forces or the cartel. It's the minor things. Now, a lot of people are okay with this, but personally, I would like for this to be permanent. Now, I'm okay with encountering the, what are they called? The cartel or the government forces while I'm running around my secured provinces. I'm actually okay with that because it does make sense. However, the way they're doing it right now makes it so that basically any progress I make is just nullified and meaningless. Again, I understand that some people like this. Not personally for me, though. Not personally my cup of tea. I would prefer progress that's more substantial and more meaningful. And it's not like, again, I'm not reinventing the wheel. Take a look at Just Cause, for example. Just Cause 3, not 4. 4 wasn't very good. But Just Cause 3, every time you liberate a base, your people would take it over. And you have the entire map to play with. And they're not focused on allowing for more playability, because they know by the time that you've liberated the entire map, it would have taken you hundreds of hours, and if you want to do it all over again, you'll just start a new game plus, right? It's far better to have 2 playthroughs of the game than have one endless one where it's all just meaningless, right? And it's not entirely meaningless because their presence does decrease and some areas are permanently liberated. But a lot of them aren't. And honestly, the game looks just... Ghost Recon 2 looks exactly like that. It looks way too similar to Wildlands, right? Although, no, it's not 2, it's the next Ghost Recon game, right? It looks way too similar to Wildlands, or to the Ghosts. It is called Wildlands, but the characters are Ghosts, right? There you go. It's set pretty much with similar characters, and the story's interesting. It seems interesting, but I don't know. I don't know what to think. And you could argue, well, oh, they're just special operatives, they're not meant to hold areas down or whatever. Yeah, that's why you're working with the local resistance, right? If there's no local resistance, then I accept that I'm never going to be able to hold down a base. I welcome it, right? I really do, but I'm working with a resistance cell who are armed and organized. Matter of fact, I'm stealing copious quantities of medicine, weapons, fuel, food for them. They're not putting it to much use, apparently. But hey. Alright, that's for that. Doom 2, except it's not called Doom 2, it's called Doom Eternal. Yeah. Well, it is called Doom 2. Well, we don't want to call it Doom 2 because there's already a Doom 2. Yes, and there's already a Doom, but you called the first one Doom. Have some consistency. Be that as it may, and my personal annoyance with the naming convention aside, There's not much to say about this game. It's more Doom, and that can't be a bad thing. It really can't. They've gone completely bonkers with the storyline and some of the, jabs they're taking at political correctness, and I love them for it, and they're just... It's more rip and tear, visceral demon-killing action with heavy metal playing in the background. It's all you need. It is all you need. It's a fantastic game, and we've seen a lot of it. That's just... all I want to do now is buy it and play it. I don't need to see anything more. I've seen an in-depth, almost documentary of what the monsters are like in New Doom and how you're going to be able to shoot off bits of them and whatnot, and I'm excited beyond belief. Like, stop, my man sausage can only get so erect, the meme. Right? Not very typical saying for me, but hey, if it works, right? And it's true. I don't need to see anything more from that game. I just want them to finish it properly. Give it, take your due time, and just let me buy it and play it, because it's awesome. But that's about it from me. I mean, it's more Doom, right? It's more Doom with a more complex enemy falling apart system, in that they fall apart when you shoot them bit by bit. You can tear limbs off more effectively now. How can you not love that? It's just, if you've liked even remotely Doom 1, this is straight up your alley, because it's just that and more, and better probably. I have no problems with it, not a single thing. Can't wait for it, that's about it. Haven't said much, but hey, that's it. Moving on, we only have two more after this one. Watch Dogs Legion. Now, the trailer for this is hilarious, and if you're going to watch any trailer out of any of the games that I mentioned, go watch Cyberpunk. But if you watch Cyberpunk and you don't, you fancy some more E3 footage, watch this, even if you're not that interested in the game. I've played the original Watch Dogs. I haven't played the second one. Do I intend to? Well, no, I'm just going to wait for Legion, honestly, because there's other stuff to play, and I'm not that interested in 2, and especially after I've seen the reviews of it, right? But Legion does seem to be interesting in several different aspects. First of all, it introduces permadeath, which is, I think, very good for the series. It's taking on perhaps a little bit more of a grim approach and look to the game, and a bit more of a grim, I don't know, feeling in that, the characters die, but there's still jokes flying around, there's still plenty of fun to be had, right? So fear not for that. However, it introduces the trailer a hacker granny murdering people. Well, no, I don't think she killed anyone, but incapacitating people. The lady is friggin' John Wick in his grandma form. It's hilarious, it's awesome, and it sold me to a game that I genuinely don't have that much interest in, especially after the second one. It sparked a bit of interest. It did what a trailer is supposed to do. Kudos for that, because genuinely, if the trailer wasn't that good, I wouldn't be putting the game here on the list, and I wouldn't be considering it for future reference, right? But the trailer is that good, and I love it. I absolutely do. And I think you should go and watch the trailer and tell me what you think, basically. Other than that, though, it's still pretty much the same sort of hacker game, with the addition of, again, permadeath, and there's some new gameplay elements and stuff like that to discover. There's a bit of a different storyline. But on top of that, you now get a whole host of characters with the ability to recruit more. And to recruit them, apparently, is a little bit difficult. Because from what I've seen, you need to do several quests with different characters Or maybe you can do them all with one, but you need to do several stages of questing to recruit a character. Or at least that's how I understood the trailer, and if that's true, I'm very happy about that, right? Introducing something like that makes the world a lot more dynamic, and yeah, honestly, I'm for it. I'm very much for it. I would love to see where they take this, and I'm going to keep my eye on it. And they've done a great job with the trailer, honestly, which is what E3 is for. It's for presenting the game, and kudos for that, because they've presented a game which I didn't have a lot of interest in. And I think a game that with the last release, a lot of people sort of lost some of the interest in it, and then they introduce it with a, you know, probably the second best trailer on E3. And they blow it out of the park, so yeah, I'm going to give them a shot, because it looks like they've changed just enough around to make the game interesting again. And to bring me back to it, basically. So, all things considered, yeah, I'm down. I'm down for Watch Dogs. Moving on to Wolfenstein New Blood. Ooh boy, we're going to open up a can of worms now.
Found an arc.
Well, Wolfenstein the New Blood, you're now playing as the sisters of, or not the sisters of, the daughters of William J. Blazkowicz. If it's more like Wolfenstein 1 and 2, and I mean the rebooted 1 and 2, not the original Wolfenstein 1 and 2, though, now I wouldn't be opposed to playing something like that as well, probably. If it's more like that, and less like the last one, I'm fine with it. Will it be the same without Blazkowicz? Or Blazkowicz, however you want to pronounce it. I've heard all the variations. Will it be the same? Not really. Will it work? I think so. I think so. I don't see why not. I think it can work if they're his daughters. If not, you can always go back and just relaunch the entire universe. It's fine. It's been done once. We can do it again. The universe is not gonna, you know, the sky's not gonna fall on our heads if we reinvent Blazkowicz again. He's not much of a story-driven character, right? He's more of a medium for the action that's happening. But even he's a decent character, right? Even he is a decent character, unlike some of the characters in the game you're watching in the background. Throwing shade. But, yeah. I'm kidding. Rage's fun, though. I still recommend it. It's fun. It's fun. Just for shooting stuff around. It's fun. Rage 2, that is, sorry. Anyways. So, that's about it. We haven't seen much in the way of the story or the gameplay. We have seen a little bit. But, they've taken... And I'm going to open up a can of worms here. The one that I spoke about at the beginning. They've went down the entire diversity, historical revisionism, and yes, I know it's old history. Still, there's lines that you need to draw. If it's old history, fine, but you're still relying on history that's alternate. You don't just throw the entire thing out the window. There are things that you do not do. Anyways, point being, they went down the entire... ooh, I got this land, alright. They went down the entire SJW line and political correctness line and diversity and inclusion and all the terrible... my script just fell to the floor. And all the terrible things that we as a society should strive to avoid. They went down that, and I'm hoping that they come back from the abyss that they've put themselves in, right? I really, really do. Because otherwise, they're just not going to create an inferior product like the last game was. The story in the last game was shite. They killed a character I've known since I was 4 or 5. One of the first FPS games I've played on my very own PC was Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I've known Blazkowicz for years. They killed him, and I didn't care. I really didn't. They've made me not care about Blazkowicz. And yeah, that's quite an achievement. Because he was just, you know, caught up in the midst of, honestly, something he has no place being caught up in, and that's modern 21st century politics in a mostly mindless FPS shooter where you kill a bunch of Nazis, right? Is that not enough? That we're going to go around shooting Nazis is not enough. You need to enforce and shove your political perspectives down my throat. It had no place in the game. On the other hand, like, a different political view conservatism had no place in the game either. Libertarianism had no place in the game either, especially libertarianism, because it has nothing to do with anything, right? Let me shoot Nazis for the freedom of the Western world, right? Or whatever bullshit excuse they're gonna give me, or I'm gonna give, and just let me loose, right? It's supposed to be World War II alt history Doom, and you've made it Doom with politics. Modern 21st century politics. It's different when Doom does it and cracks jokes about it, because that's sort of their style, right? It's always been their style to crack jokes like that, but they don't take it seriously, and you took yourself seriously in those politics. Not in the Nazi killing. And that's the biggest mistake. Bar none, that is the biggest mistake. But, be that as it may, that is it for Wolfenstein. I don't care that they're his daughters. I'm okay with them as characters. They look relatively okay. They look charming enough to play. They look decent. They act and feel enough like their dad for me to just be like, I'm down. But just make it more like the first game and or the second game, and we'll be all cheerful and roses, right? Right. Next, where the hell is my objective? Where am I going? Do I even know? Probably not. Alright. Final entry of the day. Last, but oh so certainly not least. George R.R.M. and Miyazaki are creating a new universe. A new video game universe. Now, before I talk to you about the game, and it's an hour-long video, right? For the entirety of E3, it's not that much. And I have gone through the entirety of E3 and just picked out these games that I liked, right? Actually, there's a few I wanted to put in, but cut them out for the sake of time, but it doesn't matter right now, right? Okay, so, where was I going with this? Yes. So, a few years ago, I think, George Martin was asked the following question on one of the interviews that he did. One of the talk shows or whatever that he did. What is your opinion of video games? Do you think video games are an art form, or can be an art form? And he said no. He said video games are not an art form yet. They could be an art form with VR, but they're not an art form yet. And I'm like, well, that's extremely... I'm sorry, I love your work more than most fictional works I've used, or I've used most fictional works that I've read or experienced any other way through movies or games or whatever. Ever, pretty much. Love your work. Great. Fantastic. You're pretty fun. You're a fun person as well. From your interviews and whatnot. I really like George. I really do. But that's so ignorant. It is. Yeah, I'm going to have to defend the geeks here, right? I'm going to have to defend us. Yeah, it's very ignorant to say that with VR it's going to become an art form. It's like saying poetry is not an art form until we develop better paint, right? Better paint to represent what the poet is talking about. No. Visually, visual art is one thing. Story art is another. There is no reason why a video game would be considered less of an art than a movie. It's an interactive movie a lot of the times. Sure, some of it is just mindless fun. Look at the background footage here. It's mindless fun. It's not an art form, right? But look at Dear Esther. Look at Emily Gone Home. Or Enemy's Gone Away, was that the artistic game? I forget. Look at Layers of Fear. Look at any of the RPGs ever made. Right, The Witcher, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, any of those. They tell a story. They tell a story that's fictional, that's a lot like what you write, George. It really is. And if you're going to tell us that video games aren't an art form, you're shooting yourself a little bit in the foot, because a lot of them mirror and mimic what you do through a different medium. Now, I'm never going to tell you that Shakespeare or Edgar Allan Poe or this is again the philologist in me is coming out, right? The professional side of me is coming out. I'm never going to tell you that any of the great writers, H.P. Lovecraft, for example, I say that because I have one of his books right next to me, or even some of the 40k stuff that's written, right? If you want to think more contemporary. I'm never going to tell you that that's the same type of art. I'm never going to tell you that they're not necessarily of the same value, because if you say value if you start valuing art, you open up a can of worms from which you will never escape, right? But I'm never going to say that they're ever going to be on the same level, and that they're supposed to be looked at on the same level. It's like, the story in The Witcher is on the same level as the story in Hamlet. They're very different, even though The Witcher's based on art. There's the thing as well. It's based on literature, on world-class literature, that's modern, so it's going to take about 100 years for that to become a classic. But if it does, you're going to look very silly if you said anything, critical about it. Even though, you shouldn't really, and you should be able to criticize anything and everything in literature, but nowadays, try and criticize Shakespeare and they'll burn you alive like Galileo. I know Galileo wasn't burned alive, it's just a common misconception, but it's a fitting analogy, right? Giordano Bruno was burned alive, whatever. They're going to burn you alive like him. And, it's based on what is very likely to become a classic in the future. Game of Thrones as well. I count Game of Thrones among that type of high-end modern literature that is, sure, it's escapist, sure, it's fictional, but it deals with real things as well. And I'm going to take up 90 minutes talking about literature to you, but that's... God damn it, I love that. That's my job. Bear with me for a second. You'll learn something new that'll help you in life, maybe. Maybe you'll never use it, but hey, you never know, right? And here's the thing. Video games, stories in video games, and RPGs, and modern escapist literature, fictional literature, sci-fi literature, they do deal with escapism. For those of you that don't know, I'm using fancy words. Escapism is basically exactly what you think it is. You escape from reality. You use it just to have fun, to get away from your problems, and that's about it. That's the only purpose it serves. What the hell have I done? Except it's not, though. Except it's not. It is primarily... It does have that function primarily. This much is true. However, it's not the only function that it has. Because it deals with real life... There's an invisible wall there. Because it deals with real-life issues and problems as well. It deals with people. It deals with psychology. It deals with higher philosophical motives. Good, evil. It deals with morality, especially with morality. So, take the story of Baldur's Gate. Take the story of Dragon Age, for example. And you take the story of Tolkien. You take the story of George Martin. You take any of those stories, right? And you find that they have a lot more in common than you might think. You find that the two games... you find that the two different types of art form, and I will call them art form here, deal with similar topics. They both are escapist to an extent, and yet they both provide a certain type of serious content as well. I have no idea how to get through this. And so, what do you do? Do you call neither of them art forms? Because they deal with the same thing, they present them through a different medium, but their messages are just as bloody impactful, aren't they? Especially in The Witcher, which again is based on literature, but you know, whatever. Dragon Age 2. You're shown that, and this is, by the way, one-to-one relationship with Dragon Age, you get this in Origins as well. You're shown that whilst there are monsters in the world, literal monsters in this fictional world, the greatest monsters are often people themselves. Right? And that's no small statement. That's philosophically deep. It drives you to think. It pulls you out of this escapism mode that you've put yourself in and makes you think. Right? Tolkien did this as well. Tolkien is escapist literature, but there's more to it. Not a lot, fair enough, I'll give it to you, not a lot, and most of the topics that they do deal with are fairly basic, good and evil and whatnot. And the capacity for both in human beings at the same time often, or capacity which would seem contradictory but actually isn't. And you know, you would think that they're sort of similar enough to both be considered art forms. And that's why I will forever argue video games are an art form, as much as movies are, as much as music is, as much as literature is. You can prefer one than the other, one can be more serious than the other, one can deal with more grave topics, more serious topics, more difficult topics than the other. I won't dispute this for a second. Literature and poetry is king when it comes to those things. But it doesn't mean there's literature, 10 empty spots, and then nothing, right? There's shades, degrees, shades of grey, if you will, between the two. Between nothing and full on, right? So, to that effect...
Systems activating.
Oh, God. Hold on a second, I'm going to change games here for a second. If I... Could you please stop record? I've clicked the stop record button like 10 seconds ago. Please? No? Alright, this is World of Tanks now. I need to show a couple of replays, right? So, in the comment, this one on Airfield. But let's go back to the thing. So I've made my case for why this is an art form, and now George Martin, I think, is coming around to this because he's creating a universe for a video game along with Miyazaki. Now the two sound like, honestly, a match made in heaven. They really do. And when they announced their game, Elder Ring, they announced a whole new universe, a very, very Dark Souls-y universe, and it is going to be a Souls game. It is, by that I mean the genre of a Souls game, which I don't think is officially recognized as a genre, but it realistically should be. Why? Because it is, right? They're not very difficult games, they're games that require a lot of focus and a lot of attention. They require you to pay a lot of attention, right? They don't forgive mistakes very, very easily, and yeah, so I wouldn't call them difficult, though I still do claim Dark Souls is difficult, Bloodborne is difficult. Those are difficult games compared to 99% of anything else you can pick up on Steam, right? They are. However, it's often overrated, and it's often overemphasized, their difficulty. They just require you to focus more. But at any rate, that completely aside, the two sound like a match made in heaven. You know, Miyazaki, his world building is phenomenal. George Martin's world building is also phenomenal, and they're creating a whole new universe. Phenomenal, right? I don't know. I don't know, it depends. How well do they work together, right? It's not just a case of gather the best ingredients, or the most expensive ingredients, put them in a bowl and you have the greatest dish ever. No, you don't. Right, they need to work well with each other. You need specific types of ingredients to create a stunning dish. Coming from someone who does spend, you know, a couple of hours every day cooking, I sort of know what I'm talking about, right? The reason I say that is I'm fond of the analogy, right? And I have some personal experience with it, is what I'm getting at. But basically, what I'm saying is, it doesn't necessarily have to be the greatest thing ever, but it gives you every reason to be excited, doesn't it? It really, really does. So, to that end, everything else that we've seen from the trailer also makes you pretty bloody hype, doesn't it? Because here's the thing. The game looks like Dark Souls. Most of the characters in it, actually some of them are straight up altered copies of actual Dark Souls characters, which fascinates me. A couple of the characters that I saw are just, they are in Dark Souls, right? They exist in Dark Souls, which I have no problem with, personally. Great, if that's the route they're going to go down, I'm happy, I like it, keep it coming, right? So, I'm so unhappy that I missed that shot, by the way. Anyways, that said though, there's a little bit more to it. They've also talked a little bit about the game outside of the trailer, and they said that the game is going to be a lot more like Dark Souls than Sekiro. Good. Personally, very excited. It just makes me even more excited for the game. Because, essentially, as much as I like Sekiro, I don't actually like it that much. Here's the thing, Sekiro is a great Souls game. Sekiro feels like Dark Souls, plays differently, has different gameplay mechanics, but it's a great game. Thing is, though, I just prefer Dark Souls. I've played through Dark Souls 1 recently, I finished it. I'm now playing through Dark Souls 2, bit by bit every week. Though I haven't played in the last, like, 3 weeks or so, but, you know, bit by bit. I just prefer that type of game. I really do. And I like the fact that they're going more towards Dark Souls, because we had the Sekiro thing. It worked. People love it. I am okay with it. I like it. I don't dislike it. I just prefer the Dark Souls, like I said. But, that aside, we had the entire Sekiro experience. We're now going back to the more traditional Dark Souls formula, and on the PC. Remember, we don't have Bloodborne on the PC, so that's you know, we've missed out on that one. So all things considered, I'm quite happy that this is the way this is going, basically, right? So yeah, it looks to be another dark, grim, mysterious universe with interesting characters, an interesting storyline. Again, the motif of death reappears, the sort of similar motifs and tropes from Dark Souls make a reappearance. Is that a real word? Yeah. They make a reappearance here as well, and honestly, I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. I'm for it. I'd like to see more of it. It does, obviously, it will need to have some decent injection of originality into it, but I think the fact that it's a new universe covers that very well enough already, so yeah. All things considered, I'm pretty happy about it, and I'm pretty stoked for the game. So, there we go. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. 12, 11, yes. 13 titles from this year's E3 out of the bajillion that I've picked. 13 that I've picked out of the bajillion for you guys and for your enjoyment. So, my name is Juggernaut. Please remember to like and subscribe down below if you enjoyed this video and want to stay tuned with the rest of the series, or sorry, with the rest of the content that I produce on this channel. Making this video has been exceedingly difficult, well not difficult, but time-consuming to go through everything that happened at E3 and to pick out the most interesting and most important bits for myself, and for you guys, but it is entirely subjective, like I said, but to pick out the most interesting bits. At any rate, like I said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and as time-consuming and as in that respect difficult as this was, it was also very much, I should have applied HE there. It was also very, very rewarding and very satisfactory to do as well, so at any rate, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you all next time. Remember, have fun, and take care. Oh, I nearly forgot. Yes, I will actually let you see the rest of the battle. I completely forgot about that. But I'm not going to spoil anything, so I'll just let you watch the remainder of the battle, and then that'll be it. Thanks again for your attention. If you've made it through the entire video, you've listened to an hour of me rambling on. And hopefully you've enjoyed at least a little bit of it.